If I say anything wrong during this video, most likely it is sarcasm. Is that a failsafe for me to get stuff wrong in this video? You could see it as such. For most of history, humans thought that the world was much different than it is today. Most people thought that the world was limited in size and scope, that it was made by an almighty God, or that it was even flat. And all the population back then, and even some today, felt that our area was the center of the universe. But I'm here to tell you that they're all wrong. The Earth was actually created when a big fiery ball sent by Zeus and water started getting everywhere. Maybe Mansa had something to do with all this. The polar bears didn't know. They were just bears. And don't even get me started on the Australians. They've had it out forever. Led Zeppelin. Maps have always been the way to display what is known about the Earth. But why is that? Maybe it's because it took quite a long time to come up with a consensus on what the world looked like before mankind was around to observe it. I don't know, that's just a guess from me personally. But I'm here to show you some maps from the ye olden days from about 2003. At least that was the last time it was updated. Curated by Mr. Christopher Scotese, and how the Earth may have looked during certain periods of prehistory. Come with me and I'll show you. What do you get when you cross the most prehistoric thing you've ever seen and the coldest thing you've ever touched? Well, if you thought the packaged peas forgotten in your freezer, then you'd be a little bit off. The Precambrian is the start of it all, consisting of the Hadean, Archean, and Proterozoic eons. This map here displays the splitting up of the supercontinent Rodinia, which formed around 1.1 billion years ago. This map isn't from 1.1 billion years ago, of course, but this map is from 650 million years ago, in the latter part of the Precambrian. One thing you'll notice about this map is how empty it is, except for one area. It's practically one big island, some smaller islands, and one large ocean. The island is on the equator, and there's approximately the same amount of area on both above and below the equator. A small critique I have for this map, which will become a common theme, is that the map, to a regular viewer, is rather challenging to read. Look at all these lines everywhere, especially down here. Are these actual land masses where they are today? It could be confusing to people. In terms of plate tectonics, we can see a subduction zone, which is what is causing these islands to show on the line. There's also a seafloor spreading in the middle of the Paleozoic ocean. Other than that, nothing too much to make note of. Therefore, I will move on so I can stop looking at whatever this abomination is here on the bottom. Goodness gracious. Now we get to see an interesting picture of the Earth. Look at this. Even with it being just over 100 million year jump to the future, so much has changed, and it doesn't look like a jumbled mess of lines on the South Pole. It shows the start of the Paleozoic era, which is when hard-shelled animals started to become more prevalent on the planet. They're most likely located here in Gondwanaland, pretty much entirely in the southern hemisphere, other than a little bit above the equator. The Ordovician is where things started to get interesting, as Gondwanaland started moving up towards the equator and land masses began becoming more centralized. This time period is also when the first major extinction event occurred and the first orogeny event to occur, which makes the Ordovician a time when significant changes have happened to the Earth. The Ice Age occurred and had a tremendous impact on the climate. Goodness gracious, climate is crazy, right? You know what I mean? Of course, there are theories as to why this event occurred, and perhaps it was because of the movement of the continents. The tectonic orogeny occurred as the Iapetus Ocean started to close, creating what we know today as the Appalachian Mountains. But more on that later. That was just the first orogeny out of so many that caused the Appalachian Mountains. The extinction event occurred, which caused the start of the... Of course, as talked about before, the main event to happen here was the tectonic orogeny, which spilled into the Silurian period, which was caused by the island Baltica pushing into Laurentia. And this was, of course, part of the Appalachian mountain building process. The Ice Age also concluded around this time period, causing a time of global warming until the temperatures lowered again, which could be a result of a major drop in CO2 levels. Because of this, many marine species went extinct during this period, possibly because those species adapted to the warmer waters caused by the warming events. Poor fishies, they really didn't deserve this. Very, very sad. During the Devonian, oceans started to close and the world started to become a lot warmer and more tropical as the continents moved closer to the equator, specifically Gondwana. The fish that survived the Silurian extinction event evolved to have jaws in this time period, such as the placoderms, which don't look scary at all. Whew. Along with the fish, plants were also able to evolve and diversify themselves during this period. The really big event to occur during this period, among all the other incredible events that happened, is the second orogeny on our list for the Appalachian Mountains. Remember the last time I talked about that? Way back when? Creating what we know today as the Appalachian Mountains. But more on that later. Well, now it's time for the Akkadian orogeny, which was when Baltica collided with Avalonia, which then collided with Laurentia, creating what we know now as Euramerica. And this is the second orogeny that caused the Appalachian Mountain. The period also terminated with another major extinction event where 50% of organisms on Earth went extinct because of a mix of volcanism and glaciation. Call the Devonian period Katy Perry because it was getting hot and cold, you know what I'm saying? So the Carboniferous period is split up into the Mississippian and the Pennsylvanian. Now the Mississippian is really only characterized by the remains of the Iapetus closing as Gondwanaland moved closer to Euramerica, becoming more centrally located on the equator, and also the South Pole freezing over. But in the late Carboniferous, Pennsylvania really had it going on. I think out of these two, we know a clear winner for sure. Biggest thing to happen in the Pennsylvanian was the Appalachian orogeny, or the Alleghanian if you live in New York, which was the third and final orogeny to occur in the Appalachian mountain building event. The ice continued to grow across Gondwana and the South Pole, and coal deposits began to deposit on the equator. That's why I see so much in West Virginia. This period was also when the supercontinent known as Pangaea really started to take shape. Alright, the Permian. The map shows that the world is really starting to become more together, more one continent, and everywhere on the globe is connected. The Permian period was a period that brought us the wonderful world of reptiles and deserts, and then suddenly and swiftly killed everything else that was on the earth. Without that specific evolution event of those reptiles, it's safe to say that we wouldn't be here today. Boy, am I thankful for those therapsids, cynodonts, and lysosauruses. Thank you. Yeah, other than those three species, among a few others, everything else died. 99% of everything on Earth was dead after that. And this is the greatest extinction event to ever occur on the planet, which makes sense why it marked the end of the Paleozoic period. Now we start with the Mesozoic era, and the first period of the Mesozoic era was the Triassic period, where things began to get hot. This is when the supercontinent of Pangaea was at its peak for being, the one continent on Earth. This time also saw the Andes and the Ural Mountains, which both were formed from all the continents, smashing into each other, becoming Pangaea. Desertification is also on the rise during this time, and the place becomes a lot more arid than before. Continents are more or less half and half on the equator now, which is a big change from it being, southern hemisphere dominant for most of prehistory. During the late Triassic, the first mammals, known as Morchineucodons, are first seen. There was also a huge extinction event due to the extreme heat, which paved the way for the dominance of dinosaurs. So during the Jurassic, this is the first time in Earth's history where the continents became predominantly north of the equator. The Pangaea supercontinent, while starting to split up in the north, still showed characteristics of being a warm and evaporate arid climate. This also caused the Tethys Ocean to open up, creating what we know today as the Indian Ocean. Gondwana is still mainly together, but signs of Australia and India splitting up are prevalent. Around this time is the Sonoma orogeny and the Nevada orogeny, which are responsible for the geomorphology that we see in California today. Later in the Jurassic, the northern hemisphere becomes a lot more scattered and nearing their current day positions. The Jurassic also saw the first marsupials running around on Earth, which personally are my favorite group of mammals by far. I mean, you got possums, you got kangaroos, you got koalas. They're so cool. I mean, look at them. They look awesome. Now we get into the Cretaceous period, and this is when Gondwana finally split up. Africa and South America started to look more like the puzzle pieces, and India made its grand trek to Asia. The globe became a lot more tropical and more wet than before, and the sea levels rose a lot, as can be seen by the interior seaways of North and South America. This was also the time when the Rocky Mountains were formed during the Laramide orogeny. Near the end of the Cretaceous, around 65 million years ago, a huge asteroid around 6 miles in diameter hit just south of the current United States and caused the dinosaurs to go extinct. Very sad, very sad. They will be missed, of course. This asteroid caused a huge crater called the Chicxulub crater, being 110 miles in diameter, which is a lot bigger than I care about to comprehend. But can you believe it? One little rock and the whole leader of the planet is gone. Well, I guess that makes sense how it's the... Now we get onto the Cenozoic, starting with the Eocene. Now the Eocene isn't the beginning of the Cenozoic, but this is the first map on the website that was listed during the Cenozoic, which was when India started to really move into Asia and created the Himalayan mountains, as well as Australia breaking off from Antarctica and moving northward. The world also became a lot more tropical, and lush forests became a lot more prominent, making amazing homes for the mammals of the New World, the new leaders. Next up, we got the Miocene. Because of Antarctica becoming its own continent and moving a little further south, the continent becomes covered in ice sheets, as well as the Antarctic circumpolar current forming. The San Andreas Fault also became a thing in this epoch, which has caused California a lot of stress and pain for a few million years now. So San Andreas Fault, if you're watching this, take it easy. Come on. California's been through enough. Compared to today, the map looks very similar, other than flooding in very low-lying areas like Florida and southern Europe. Now we go to about 18,000 years ago, during the last ice age in the Pleistocene, where the globe cooled to a new low not seen since the Permian, causing the ice at the poles to creep much further than today. The Milankovitch cycles caused the ice to expand and contract until they finally stopped at the start of the... This is where the world stands today. Very diverse landscape, lots of land in both hemispheres, and a nice temperate climate. Things are changing, however, the continents are moving closer, even little bit by little bit, centimeters a year, as well as the temperature and CO2 levels starting to rise. This is partially because that we are exiting the ice age, but it's mainly because of human activity. So, what does the future hold? Well, the future holds a lot in store for what the world could look like. As stated before, the world's continents are moving closer together, and the current global temperatures are warming, which could continue causing droughts, floods, and mass extinction. And if we look like 250 million years in the future, look at this map. This map looks almost dystopian. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It just looks really weird, and I don't like it. So, thank goodness we don't have to be alive to see that. Well, that's a basic description of these maps, what these maps are showing, and critiquing them a little bit, but not too much. These maps are actually a very good learning tool for kids, and while they can be a little confusing to look at times, I think overall they are pretty comprehensible and easy to identify what is what on the map. This website and these maps do a great job at briefly explaining the history of the world over the many eras and periods in existence, but it does lack some description because of that. Talking more about the CO2 levels, temperature, and climate, the orogenies, and why certain events happened, among other things, could be brought up and explained more than they are now. Other than that, it's a great website, 10 out of 10, would use again. They're maps. I'm a geography guy. I love maps, so of course I'm going to love it. But I think just as maps, they're pretty cool. They're pretty good. So yeah, I'm gonna go eat now. It's been days. So, peace.